Recording in progress. Thank you, automated voice. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Autos and Airways podcast. I'm your host, Alex Shum. Today we are joined by my friend, Kristin Thul.
You got it.
I got it. Yes. She is one of my Instagram friends and she has competed in the Rebelle Rally twice, correct? Twice. Yeah. Diehard Land Rover enthusiast, off-road enthusiast as well, and just a car enthusiast in general. So Kristin, thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to discussing all sorts of interesting stuff with you today.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I'm glad
of course. So as always, we start off with cars and bids. So I'll pull up the car that you chose, which you chose a long time ago, because we were supposed to do this a long time ago and life got in the way.
That's okay. It still has everything on, even if it's sold already.
Yeah. So, you want to talk about that?
Well, it's a 2004 Land Rover Discovery 2. It's an SE trim. The 2004 is nice because the more I was learning about Land Rovers, that's the one you want because it has a locking center differential.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a really clean example. I don't know if this one's ever even seen dirt, which if I'm buying a used car, grabs my attention for sure.
Yeah.
But, the 4.6 liter V8. I am a sucker for V8s. Mm-hmm. Ironically, I have the SCV6 and a 2015 LR4, which I do love, but I'm kind of a classic nerd when it comes to the engines. Mm-hmm. I like that V8 power. So
yeah, so do I. And I was worried going from a V8 LR4 to a 4-cylinder turbo Defender, but in reality, it's the difference in acceleration is pretty much the same. It's like half a second slower in the new one. So,
yeah,
but
that turbo makes all the difference.
it does, but you don't have. It's not the same. You don't have the character of the V8. I do not miss the abysmal fuel economy that got. But
it's true. City driving is not ideal.
I was rated at 12 city, 17 highway. I averaged like 14 in mixed conditions, and it was bad. But I don't know. A turbo can only do so much, but there's nothing like a V8. But no, this one's really like you said, 04 was the last year for the diff lock. Now you can retrofit it into any one of them, but you're better off just finding an 04. And this one's really nice. Chalk and white with black interior, really nice spec.
Yeah, the black and white. I know that's been a very popular color combination for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Land Rover, if I'm building my dream vehicle, I'm probably going some variation of green. But this one's a clean example with the black and white. I know you can retrofit those differentials in different years, but I'm definitely more for the less you have to do to your vehicle and modify it. I'm happy. I don't want to. I'm probably an outlier in the sense that I don't want to tinker as much on the weekend. I just want to go drive my car and be able to go where I want to go, So the D2 has always been attractive just with its capability. I know that every older vehicle, especially with electronics, has issues, but this was a clean example. I think if I needed or wanted something, this would have been a good one to go with. I mean, it sold for
11
in October. So I think that's based on the market prices I've seen for these D2s, I'm coming from California where there are plenty of people trying to get 15, 16, 17 plus. I've seen one for 30. it's kind of all over the place, which, 30, you could maybe get me to pay for an RRC. I'm not quite there for a D2, but they're
Yeah.
all increasing, in desirability. So 11 seems like a great price to me.
Yeah. And especially for one that's this nice. I mean, you never know. It looks like it was taken looks like someone took good care of it.
Mhm.
Uh, there was an accident in 2008, but it looks like it was, taken care of quite well. But yeah, it's just a really, really nice example. And I mean, I wouldn't mind taking one of those and using it off road I do obviously some different tires, maybe a small lift, and that's about it. Because you don't really need to do a whole lot with these because they're already pretty good out of the box as long as they have this center diff.
Yeah, of course, I know people switch over the suspension, and, at some point with an older vehicle, you're going to have to
Mhm.
pay attention and care for that, which is cool. That's just not something I'm familiar with yet. I want to know my vehicles, so it would be really cool to get an older Land Rover and be able to know enough to work on it. But I'm certainly not at the skill level that I can just tinker every weekend. Like, I
Yeah,
just want to drive
yeah.
it.
So I think I'll talk about real quick the car I chose, which is 2021 Aston Martin Vantage. It's no longer the V8 Vantage, but yeah, it's the coupe. It has the rare 7-speed manual, which they only did for a couple of years, and then the new CEO of not AMG of Aston Martin. He came from AMG to Tobias Moores, who is honestly, I know quite a bit about him. I'm very familiar with his work. He's a German redneck. I mean, that's exactly that's what he is. I mean, his cars reflect his personality. I mean, really loud, brash V8s that do smoky burnouts everywhere. And then there was another thing I saw in according to an auto journalist, he would, and I don't know if this is true or not, but according to an auto journalist, he would invite journalists to his farm in Germany and they would just blow things up for the fun of it. So, like I
He
said, I don't
sounds
know if
like
that's
a
true,
fan of the
but
party. Yeah.
everything under AMG that he did was they're really good cars. And I think
Yeah.
kind of the whole reason he left AMG to take over Aston Martin was because the suits at Daimler basically said your new C63 AMG is going to be a 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid. We could do a V8, but we don't want to. So he, knowing him based on what he's done in the past, he probably would not let that fly. And that's why he went to Aston Martin, which still use AMG V8s. I'm not a big fan of turbo V8s, but AMG, no one does a turbo V8 like AMG. They sound like NA V8s. They respond almost like NA V8s. And yeah, but this one's really nice. It's magnetic silver with a black interior, kind of a Bond, James Bond spec.
It is.
It's got some good options on it. It has navigation, Aston Martin premium audio system. Weird, you cannot get Bang & Olufsen sound in a Vantage anymore. You get Aston Martin sound and then Aston Martin premium sound, which actually I've been in an old Vantage with Aston Martin premium and it was actually surprisingly good. But yeah, it's got ceramic coating on it. What else? Interestingly, the infotainment is the previous generation Mercedes infotainment system, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that.
What year is this again?
21, brand new.
This is brand new.
Yeah. It's a lovely car. I'm not a huge fan of the Alcantara interior, but other than that, it's a lovely car. It is one of my all-time dream cars. The old one, but the new one it's hard to fault.
The new, it's really beautiful, and I think that there's a crowd that's split. There's still, the classic manual, old school. You can't have a sports car without a manual, and I agree with that. And then you have the other class that like that PDK, and which is really nice on the track. But oh my gosh, if you're going for an Aston Martin, I hope that you go for a manual and can enjoy it in the mountains.
Yeah, and like I said before we started recording, I mean, Aston Martin gave up on the manual. They did it for a couple of years with the new Vantage, and the whole reason was, according to some people within the company, they the previous CEO was like pushing all of our cars are going to have a manual. We want people to buy a manual, and then they didn't do a whole lot of marketing for it. It's Aston Martin. They don't do a whole lot of marketing anyway, but they didn't discuss it that much. A lot of people didn't know, and a lot of the public just didn't really seem to care that much. And then when the new CEO came in, he pulled the plug on it, which was unfortunate, because and although the automatic in this is the ZF 8-speed that's used in everything. It's in my Defender, it's in your LR4, it's in BMWs, Audis, Alfa Romeos, the Ram pickup trucks, and it's in everything. In my opinion, the best torque converter automatic that in the industry, but it's still not the same as a manual. And what's really cool about this manual, as you can see, it's a dog leg. First is to the left and down instead of to the left and up.
Yeah,
which is an old racing thing.
That is.
So, but yeah, it's
gonna drive that car.
I wonder, it's at 85 grand right now. It's gonna go for more than that, but
for sure. 6 days left. So
yeah. I mean, if that was 85 grand for that thing, I would take that in a heartbeat.
Right.
I mean,
the hardest part is with these auctions, it's those
Yeah.
last couple minutes that the prices skyrocket. So it's really hard to know. I don't know what's the new price on an Aston Martin on the 2021 like that. Do you remember?
I don't know. I can find out. I think it's like 120, 130. I'll look that up real quick. I'm sure that's going to sell for basically sticker price, because that's got some options. It's oh wow, it's actually a lot more. It starts at 139, so almost 140. But still, that price, it's not that bad with options. It's going to be around 160, 170, which is still in 911 Carrera money. So yeah. So I would like to discuss Rebelle.
Sure.
Which is something that you have been very fortunate enough to participate in. It's a really it's basically, I know we talked about this months ago, but it's like an off-road. First, it's all women. There's no men. It's off-road, and it's kind of, I guess, like a scavenger hunt almost, for lack of a better term.
That's it's probably one of the harder scavenger hunts you could do, but it is. It is.
It's and there's no GPS. You do have radios, right, to contact people, or
we do. They hand out satellite phones in case of emergency. We also have trackers, so they know where our location is at all times. But and the trackers, we have to click on those checkpoints to gain points. So we have that technology, but it doesn't give us any advantage in finding anything other than if you're lost and you can't get back to a known point, you can click that tracker and get your coordinates, but you get penalized for it. So there's no advantage in having that. They wrap up your cell phones, your technology, they disconnect your vehicle's GPS. You're out there on your own.
Yeah. So speaking of, so when they like disconnect, do they obviously you used your LR4. Do you still have access to like your 4x4 information screen or any?
Yes.
So it's just they pull the fuse for GPS or something like that, or
Yes.
or
Yeah.
whatever they
So
do.
it depends on the vehicles. With the LR4, they just pulled the fuse. I
Mhm,
lost all GPS, but I still had my infotainment
mhm,
screen in order to see my 4x4
mhm.
information, but I didn't have the compass. It was, there was no advantage as far as being on my screen. It disconnected all of that. So having the compass in the car is not necessarily an advantage. Some of the JLs, the Wranglers, have compasses that the teams can use because it doesn't give you coordinates. Our
Right.
compass in the LR4 gives
It
you coordinates.
does.
So,
Yeah.
if for some reason I still had that on the screen, even after they pull the fuse, they completely tape your screen over. And that's what they did in 2020. I did my Ford
Mhm.
Super Duty, and they had to tape my full screen. So I didn't have
Ooh,
access to it. I
yeah.
didn't have access to my steering wheel heater, those, that oversight in car design.
Yeah. Put everything in the screen and let's call it a day. And it
Exactly.
just doesn't.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I mean, that Sync 3 system that's in the excellent. My sister's Ford Escape has that infotainment system. It's quick. It always responds. It's easy to use. Um, but some of them get a little too difficult by putting your HVAC or heated seats or heated steering wheel controls. And I mean, my grandfather, who's God bless him, 92 years old, drives a Ford Taurus and it has all of this stuff in the screen, and it overwhelms him
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah.
But um, but yeah, it's just less. Apparently, less buttons is more attractive, and I guess in design, yes, I would agree with that. But in practice, it's just not. Um, but yeah, so I mean, something I'd like to ask is because you did it in the LR4 and then you did it in the Super Duty. I mean, how those are two very different vehicles.
Very different. Oh my
I could
gosh.
imagine the truck was probably a lot more difficult just because of the size. I mean, it's not an F-150, it's F-250, right? So
250.
it's yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, you look at them; they're completely different. I would say the LR4, and I wish that I had taken them to the scale to weigh them, because with all our gear, in the Rebelle, it's just a two-person team. So you have a driver, a navigator. It's up to the teams if they switch. We never did, unfortunately. I get car sick, so I was designated driver. But anyways, the LR4, I was probably right around 7,000 pounds, which is
Well,
still heavy,
yeah.
heavy vehicle to be driving over the landscape. I mean, we see everything. We're in Northern California. We work our way through Nevada, and then we're down and work our way down to sand dunes. And we finish in the Glamis sand dunes, which, 7,000-pound vehicle proved to be challenging.
Yeah.
And so uh, I decided to do it in the truck for the fun of it. And it worked out in 2020. There were a handful of full-size trucks. There was two different Rams. I think they're both 2,500,
Mhm.
so similar size.
Yeah.
And my truck, it's 19 feet long. We have a steel drawer system plus a cargo slide in the tail, plus a steel topper. So I was pushing 10,000 pounds on that vehicle.
Yeah.
And just the length and the weight, the the most important thing is, know your vehicle,
Mhm.
know what PSI is best in the terrain that you're in. There's a lot of sharp rocks in California, in the Eastern Sierras. And uh, I needed to know where my tires were,
Yeah.
because
It's the
it
most
would have
important
been,
thing.
yeah,
Doesn't matter if you're
it's any
off-roading or on the
yeah,
road, like the most
absolutely.
important thing you can do is always make sure your tire pressures are right. Make sure you have the right tires. It's something that, my dad does. He'll always buy really cheap tires for, like the company vehicles. And I understand why, but cheap tires are basically the most important thing you can do to your car, no matter what, is tires. And you don't want cheap Chinese tires that are not going to last very long. And
No, I mean, that is your connection to the road,
yeah,
and doesn't
and your
matter.
contact patch is basically, this nears makes no difference the size of your hand.
Yeah.
You have 4 of those, and that's all that's connecting your massive truck to the road.
Yes.
And sometimes if you're off-roading, you might not have all 4 tires on the ground.
No. Yeah, especially for gosh, I don't have the wheelbase length off the top of my head for that truck, but
I can find out real quick.
yeah, it's long, it's an F-250. It's a big truck, and I will say it drove great. We did upgrade the suspension. It was already upgraded to Fox 2.0 because it's a Roush trim. We chose to go with an upgrade of the Carly suspension, which was amazing. I mean, it's like driving on a cloud. And so that made a big difference, just having a lighter suspension, looser response, essentially, which is probably not a great description, but it's not as stiff, so that made a huge difference. Going bone stock in a Super Duty would have been rough because especially 2020, the course changes a little bit every year. And just so returning Rebels don't have an advantage. And we had such a rough enduro, which we, for the Rebelle, if anyone's not familiar with it, it's essentially a scavenger hunt. We start our morning with the whole event is map and compass based, and we start our morning. They give us around 20 to 22 checkpoints, and it's based kind of like a skiing system: green, blue, and black. So green is required to find and the easiest to find. They have big green flags, and it's for safety to essentially move people along the course because we are moving down south during over 8 days of competition. Blue sometimes may be only marked with a fence post, so it's more challenging to find. And then black is not marked at all. It's bullseye based, and you have to basically use speed and not speed, I'm sorry, that's enduro, but and distance and heading. You might need to use triangulation, and it's a bullseye of how close you can get to that black checkpoint. So anyways, kind of got off track there. We also do enduros, which are time, speed, and distance. And I think day 3 we were on an enduro, and maybe day 2, and this, California doesn't get a lot of rain, so a lot of the back roads are heavy washboard. Some of them aren't terrible, and I was grateful for that Carly suspension. This was like a solid rutted out washboard road, and trying to keep close to speed as we could. And I actually sheared 3 bolts off my steel topper based on how rough the road was.
Yeah.
So that was a long roundabout, but I'm so grateful I had upgraded suspension, and that, even that road was a narrow canyon that I needed to know where my tires were with that long vehicle. As much as I love my truck, I wholeheartedly prefer my Land Rover off-roading.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, kind of when you think of that truck, although you can go off-road, that's not what its purpose. It's people that buy this, they're work trucks.
Yeah.
They're what people buy them for their business or construction company or the work trucks, or towing especially.
And we purchased it more. It is a size upgrade from the Land Rover because we have 3 kids. So when we travel a lot, it's nice to have the truck bed for everything. And it affords us that capability to do some off-roading with it without going full. We haven't gone full backcountry with it. We've done some of the trails in Colorado over to Telluride, I didn't do Imogen Pass in that truck.
I wouldn't. I don't. Yeah.
And you know, those hairpin 3-point turns or 10-point turns in the truck. So
Yeah. So
the trail we did was great and we made it through and the truck drove great, but that's probably the extent of backcountry I would do in that truck.
so kind of going back a little bit. I have a good amount of European people that listen to this, and they're not
Oh, yeah.
familiar with just how big this is. So I'm trying to look into this. Do you know what? And you have the crew cab, so the 4-door.
4-door.
What do you know? What the bed size is?
It's the short bed.
So that's going to be a 6.8-foot bed.
Yeah, it's about 6.5 feet. It's right around 19 feet long. I
Yeah.
just don't remember what the wheelbase is.
So
I might be able to find it.
I got it.
You got it?
So the wheelbase is 160 inches. To put that in perspective to my European friends, so 160 inches is 4,064 millimeters. Also, to put that in perspective, the length of a Fiat 500 is 144 inches, which is 3,658 millimeters. So you could fit an entire Fiat 500 between in the wheelbase of that truck and still have an extra foot and a half. And
yeah, several.
It's I mean, that thing is so big, you can almost fit a Range Rover Evoque in the wheelbase of that thing.
That's true.
So that's you know, an Evoque's just a little bit bigger, but not by much. So that's what a lot of people here in the US drive. They're everywhere. It's the Ford F-Series. It's the best-selling vehicle in this country for the past 40, almost 45 years, I believe. And they're good trucks.
They're great trucks.
Yeah.
You know, I will say Ram has done a great job with their trucks to
Yes.
off the lot. They're off-road ready and they're beautiful, very capable trucks. You know,
I don't know how long I'd want to own one for. Chrysler reliability, no thank you.
Yeah, I've owned a little bit of everything, and a Chrysler vehicle is one of the few I've never owned.
Okay.
You know, I obviously have a lot of friends that are diehard fans, but for me, it was not on my radar to go that route. So the Ram trucks are amazing. It was fun to see them and their capability. And if you need a full-size truck with off the lot off-road capability, that's probably the way to go. Ford has the trim now, so they're trying, but obviously the Raptor is a good choice too. So
and now the TRX too.
Yes,
which I mean, you know, the more I think, I actually drove one of those recently, and that was yeah. I mean, if you could sum up America in a vehicle, it's that. It's a giant pickup truck with a giant V8 that gets 10 miles per gallon. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it's, you know, it's extremely pretentious. I mean, I feel like if you were to have that thing parked next to a Lamborghini, I think the bigger douchebag is the one driving the truck. Excuse the language, but like it's just like it's. But the thing is, I fell in love with that thing. I mean, it was so cool. I mean, it's a big middle finger to everyone, but
it is.
There's nothing like it, and there's never going to be anything else like it ever again.
They did a good job with it. I mean, it's a pretty cool truck, you know. And
price wise, you can get one for sticker. They're not that. I think they started like in the low 70,000, and if you get one with everything on it, it's a little over 100. But they come with a ton of equipment in the base model. I think the mid-range one is the one I get, which is like 78. I think I don't remember off the top of my head, but that gives you everything you want. And I think the loaded one gives you some nicer leather, and
they're generally, I think they track to be almost $15,000 to $20,000 less than a Raptor, depending on your options and trim level. And obviously, there's so many factors, but you know, I think Ram's done a good job making that attractive to people. Obviously, like price is
Yeah,
always a factor, and when you can drive off the lot and go hit the dirt
right.
for 20 grand less, I
But
don't blame anyone.
another thing with pickup trucks, though, a lot of people in Europe don't understand is it might have a sticker price of $70,000, but people that are buying them are never, unless if it's a special one, maybe like a TRX or a Raptor, no one pays that. People always buy them at the end of the year when you can get like $20,000 off,
That's true.
and that's
But
just kind of,
yeah, I mean, the dealer markups on
well, now is insane.
now it's insane, and anything desirable like that, they're going to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
So
So the 22 Ram TRX starts at 72,000, and then there's packages that you can get. So there is it's a TRX level 1 equipment group, which gives you the heated steering wheel, heated fronts. That's not standard. Heated front seats aren't standard. I feel like that's not true.
I don't know.
You get the one you want is going to be hey, this makes no sense at all. TRX level 2 gives you heated and cooled seats, all sorts of stuff. I feel like Edmunds is
There's
not,
so many, there's so many options. I've never honestly looked at the tier. I mean, we eyeballed a Ram very briefly before buying the F-250, but I've never looked at the specs on the TRX, and it's almost confusing at this point, with ordering a new vehicle. There's just so many options, and that goes with any vehicle you order. So it's interesting on the flip side when they're just on the lot. Some people I don't even realize what they're missing out on or care, so.
Right. And I mean, that's at least, like, I know for me ordering my Defender, I spent way too much time on the configurator. So I knew exactly what I wanted anyway. And at least with some configurators are confusing. I think a lot of Chrysler configurators can be confusing. Also, to some extent, Ford, I don't think their whole website's laid out very well. Jaguar Land Rover is laid out very well. BMW does a good job. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that people just don't know, and they just don't know about it, and they might be missing out. So I guess kind of moving on, I'd like to discuss LR4, because that's obviously your Instagram handle.
It is.
But it's because I mean, the one you have is a little bit different than the one I used to have. Different engine, and obviously you have quite a few modifications to it. But yeah, what is I mean, how long you did not buy it new, correct? Didn't you get it? It was like CPO or something.
Yeah, we bought it. Let's see, 20. Oh my gosh. Now I have to rack my memory. Let's see. I have 124,000 miles on it. We bought it in 2017 with 40. I think it had about 40,000 miles on it.
Okay.
So we put quite a few miles on it, but it was not new to us. And when we bought it, of course, we really wanted the HD package. But in 2017, those were still kind of like a needle in the haystack. They were really hard to find.
Yeah, they still are.
They still are.
I mean, they make, and it's funny, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who he has a 2011 LR4, like same year that my old one was with the V8. And he said they made ones. I mean, HD packages are, I mean, they're out there. I mean, if you look, you can find them, but they're kind of obscure. You have to like know where to look to find them.
And I think as far as numbers go in the US, I think that they were not high for a technical term. There were not many ordered or available in the US. So
let's face it, the people that were buying them couldn't care less.
No, or they didn't know.
Yeah. Whereas if you go to Europe, there are a lot. I mean, very few were built without them.
Yeah, that's my one complaint with Land Rover, and I 100% understand why they do it, because I think the majority of their clientele, their client base doesn't care. They're not going to take them off road. They might take them to the mountain skiing or whatever, but they don't need that HD
Right.
package. They don't need the locking differential. It's just disappointing it was an option, because they're hard to
And
find. Unless you go before 2013.
yeah, which makes it, which is, I was just about to bring that up. It's worse that every single one of them had it. I mean, not all of them had the rear locker, but they still had the low range and the center diff lock.
Right.
Instead of, and then when they did the mid-cycle update in 2014, here in the US, they dropped the V8 and went to the supercharged V6, and they got rid of the, the full-time four-wheel drive for a system very similar to like the Audi Quattro, which has a Torsen center diff instead of like the full locking one.
Yes.
It's still a very capable car, obviously, as you have proved.
100%.
It is still way more capable than basically anyone would ever need, but it lost. It just kind of, it's not. Yeah, it's they obviously know their clientele.
Yeah. It's okay. You can say it kind of lost its appeal. And
it's not what it should be. But what's interesting, from what I've seen all over the internet, people that bought the Defenders, not all of them, but quite a big amount, are using them as they were meant to be used. Which is great.
That's amazing.
It is. And it's I kind of wish I was one of them, but I got all the off-road stuff because I intend to use it, but I also live in a place where there's nothing around me.
I mean, moving to Texas, I feel you.
Yeah. And I also don't want to ruin my paint either, because I don't have a film on it. I do have a ceramic coating, but that only does so much. And it's a brand new car. I mean, in a few years, yeah, I'll use it, but but it's great to see that. And also they all come with a low range. Interesting though, on the Disco 5 pre-facelift, so the one that I have, every 7-seat model came with low range.
Oh,
so if you got a 5-seat, they all had the same four-wheel drive system you have.
Yeah,
but you could get a 5-seat with low range is an option. But if you got 7 seats, you automatically get low range, and then you still have to pay extra for the rear diff lock. But and now with the update for the Disco 5, every 6-cylinder comes with low range. But if you get a 4-cylinder, you have it's high range only. You can't even option low range.
Oh, interesting.
Which I can understand that, but
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm assuming they did market research and
probably
wasn't worth the cost, but
then again, most people are getting the 6-cylinder Disco 5, even though everyone's buying a Defender instead of it. People are still they're getting that. And also it's interesting, the Disco comes with air suspension, whereas the Defender, it's now an option.
You know what? I did not know that until 2021 Rebelle, a D90 was in there, and it did not have the air suspension. And I had no idea that they had switched over to that being an option.
It was interesting. So originally all 110s were air only. 20 model year was obviously only the 110, and then 21 model year, all 110s had air. They all, even when the car was revealed back in 19, in their press material, they were like, oh yeah, all 110s come with air. All 90s come standard with coils, apart from like the first edition and the 90X. Those come standard with air, but air is available on all of them.
Gotcha.
And then for 22, they made coils standard on all of them, 110s and 90s.
Is that a supply chain issue?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just because they realize they could get more money out of people, which is, that's how you do business.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and then for 23, I believe it's still the same. In air suspension, it's not. It's I think it's like $1,600, which really isn't much when you're spending that on a car.
I just think that's like a no-brainer. Obviously off-roading, but If you intend to do any sort of driving in snow, even just to have those few extra inches and being able to put it in high mode makes a huge difference.
It does.
So
It does.
again, maybe the main market clientele doesn't care.
Yeah, and also with it's a much better ride. I've not driven a Defender on coils. My salesman at Land Rover, he said it wasn't too different, but there's definitely a difference. And of course, with the Defender, they all have the adaptive dampers, so that obviously it's constantly adjusting to give you the best ride possible. So the coils don't come with that. I mean, you can do it with coils, but Land Rover doesn't, and I understand why. But yeah, it's a no-brainer at that for $1,600. If you already, and the price of that thing has gone up significantly since it came out. It started in 2020, it was like 49 for a 110, and then 90 for 21 was like 45, 47, and now it's like 53 for a base 90 or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, got it. And then factor in
supply,
and supply issues, dealer markups. We've kind of been keeping an eye on any availability in the US period without ordering it. And I would say, it's $20,000 to $30,000 markup, if not more. And actually, Oklahoma City had two V8s. They had a D90 and the 110, and I think they marked up the 110 by 50.
Jesus.
Oh my God, why? Someone's gonna pay it. So
of course. And I'm the one here laughing at everyone because somehow I managed to get mine under sticker. Not much, but still. And I'm like, I'm so thankful that I got mine when I did.
Yeah.
I would have waited a little longer. I mean, but so I guess moving on, you do have a new car coming very soon. You wanna?
Oh, well, it's not a Land Rover, which is okay. It's going to be my husband's car. I'm not replacing the LR4 with it. I am keeping an eye on the market in Land Rover to see if the 130 will ever make it.
It will. It's right around the corner.
Fingers crossed. I mean, I know it's coming. I would love, ideally, a V8 130 and get 8 miles a gallon, I'm sure. But that would make my heart happy, but I probably wouldn't off-road it. So what's coming to us, which should be here hopefully next week, is the new first edition Ford Bronco. So we ordered, let's see, I got really lucky with the reservation. I got kicked off the website when they opened the ordering. You paid $100, and I got kicked off multiple times, and somehow was able to get a first edition reservation when it was still within that 3,700 reservation limit. Now they did open more, and I think they doubled it. And so ours finally got ordered in February of 2021. So not quite a year wait time, but they had some hardtop issues and that delayed ours. But it's somewhere in California, and they would not change the dealer delivery for us. So we have to go back to California for the delivery.
So you're flying back and then driving it all the way home.
Flying back and then driving home. Yeah. So
well, there's no better way to get to know your brand new car than taking it on a long road trip. You'll very quickly find out what you like and what you don't like.
It's true. I'm hoping we can make time to play with it on the way. There's so much landscape. We're taking it across Arizona, New Mexico. Maybe, one of my best friends lives in Arizona. She loves to go to the Glamis sand dunes. So I'd love to, sorry for the background noise. That's my front door. Can I go open it? I'm so
absolutely.
Okay, go ahead. Do you need help? Do you need car keys? Okay, you good? All right, sorry. My daughter was locked out.
Oh no, that's all right.
That's so okay. Anyways, I would love to play with it on the way home if we can make it happen. We do have an amazing detailer that does do a protective expel wrap on our vehicles to protect from a lot of the pinstripes that
Yeah.
lots of people are proud of. I'm still a little neurotic about my cars. So
Yeah.
as much as I off-road, I do try to keep them in good
Yeah.
condition. I don't love the scratches, so it's a
No,
catch
I don't.
for me.
I don't either.
You can't avoid them all, but preventative. So it's going straight to the detailer in Southern California. But like I said, I'm hoping we can make time over the holidays or whenever it's ready to play with it a little
Yeah.
bit in either Arizona or California. There's plenty of public land out there. So
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny that the first edition comes out and they don't make them first.
I know that's
Like-
what I said.
like-
Why why are you gonna have that name and not make those first and release those?
Yeah.
I don't.
And it's weird I know the Discovery 5, when that came out, they did a first edition, and that was a limited number of cars. And then they did the Defender first edition, and they did that for 2 model years for the 110. You get a 2020 first edition and a 2021 first edition.
That's another oddity.
Yeah. Now,
Why?
granted, some of those were for the 90, which was the 21 was the first year for the 90, but they're still doing 2021 110 first editions. Okay. And they cost more.
Did they have a number limit on first edition badges?
I'm not sure. I really don't know the whole story with that, but I would never get a first edition because it was a little bit more. It was based on an SE. It was a little bit more than an SE with options, and it didn't have the same amount of features as an SE that cost. It was just kind of like they kind of skimped you on options for a fancy name.
They did, and honestly, they did that for the Bronco as well. Your options were limited. They released classic colors, so your colors were limited. I get what you're saying, and I don't know if that's to keep them on a baseline unique first edition, like the Land Rover, the Pangea green, that's your classic, and you only had so many color options.
Which actually with the 90, that was the only color you could get on a first edition. It was Pangea green with white roof. The 110 first edition, you get Pangea green, you get silver, and you could get the Gondwana stone. And that was.
Did you do Eiger? No, you can do Eiger, right?
Not on the first edition, no. But yeah, but also the first edition Bronco basically comes with everything on it, though, right? It's like a top of the line.
It is. It's kind of the combination of Badlands. I think Badlands, Welltrack. It just has all the premium options that if you were choosing in any of the other trim levels, it was still an option on the first edition for the Sasquatch package. So we chose the Sasquatch. We already ordered new wheels for it.
Okay.
So the upgrade was not for the wheel, I can't remember what they called it,
the beadlock wheels.
The beadlock wheels, which my husband is like, cool, beadlocks are awesome if we're going to trailer it to the trailhead.
Yeah.
Beadlocks on the trail, but he was like, I'm not doing beadlocks on the highway.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't like the look. So that was our first order. I think they're on their way to the detailer shop to be put on before it even comes home. But we did opt for the Sasquatch package, mainly for that.
The extra amount of capability for it.
Yeah.
And you're going to use it as that. I mean, if I bought a Bronco, I personally would not get it because I know I would still use it off-road, but I would not use it to the point where I would need that extra amount of capability. Sure. It looks awesome. It does, but you're a little compromised on the road as well.
For sure.
Which, let's face it, that's where it is 90% of the time.
Yeah. A little more road noise.
But it's cool. I mean, it's awesome that they do that from the factory because are they what 35s, I believe?
technically they're 35s. I think they really measure 34 and some
Yeah.
change. That's something we'll probably end up changing out as well to probably some Toyo open
Mhm.
country. But to come off the lot with that tire
Yeah.
size
It's
is
impressive.
really nice, you know, and it has the Bang Olufsen.
Bang& Olufsen sound, yeah.
Yeah, so that's nice. Which
Which
I
is
know.
weird is in some in a lot of Fords, I was extremely disappointed with it. I've not heard one in a Bronco, so the one I drove did not have Bang& Olufsen. So I would imagine it's going to be 10 times better than what was in it, the one I drove. So you don't need to worry about that. But the Bang& Olufsen in the Edge, I drove an Edge ST. It was so bad. I mean, the fact that it has the Bang& Olufsen name on it was just honestly a disservice to the company that makes really high end stuff, and it
Interesting.
was horrible. The one, the Expedition, was okay, not great, but the one in F-150, the previous gen F-150, I thought was fantastic, and that's the same one that you can get in the Super Duty. One of the Mustang's pretty good, but yeah, it's weird. It's some of them are have no. First of all, it shouldn't be called Bang& Olufsen, and I didn't even think it was good to have any name brand on it because
Yeah,
it just wasn't good.
interesting.
But I can't be the judge on the Broncos, but I can almost guarantee it'll be way better than the standard sound system, which was not good. But then again, it's not really supposed to be.
It's not, you know,
No,
if you're not paying for that upgrade, it's not going to be great. So
no.
hopefully it'll be decent. You know, I think that the Bronco is a good bridge between like a Jeep Wrangler and the Defender,
Hmm.
right? You know,
I agree,
the
100%.
they really are great comparisons, but the bridge is, you know, it's the Bronco's still utilitarian.
Yes.
You know, if you want that upgrade refined interior, you go for the Defender,
Mhm.
which of course, like I love in my LR4. But I'm hoping, and I don't know until we get it, which hopefully it'll be here next week, with the sound deadening, it'll still be a fairly comfortable ride
Mhm.
versus a Jeep Wrangler where those are off road and
Yeah,
maybe less comfortable on road, you know? So
yeah,
it'll be interesting if the sound system is worth it, you know, in that upgrade.
and it came with it as standard, right? So
It
I mean,
did,
it's not
yeah.
like
Road her provision.
who at the end of the day, who cares? That's what it came with.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in it, and I will say, like the bass sound system in the Defender is also truly horrible. I thought it was really bad. So for me, the Meridian was an absolute must. I wanted the surround, but since I got a Defender S, you can't get Meridian surround. You can get the 11 speaker Meridian, which is still really, really, really good.
Yeah, it's a nice upgrade.
It is it's a hell of a lot better than what the standard one. Um, but yeah, and then also like my salesman that I work with at Land Rover, he's always had Wranglers. I know he used to own a Disco too back in the day. He's had all sorts of cars, but he's a Wrangler guy. He loves the Defender, but he is, right now he has a Gladiator. Before he had a Wrangler Unlimited, and he said if you get a Wrangler, you have to get the upgraded Alpine sound system because it's not as good as the Meridian, but it is. I mean, the bass sound system, the Wranglers, like two Apple earbuds, and that's what it sounds like. But yeah, it's
I guess if you can't hear it over the road noise, it doesn't matter,
yeah.
right?
But the thing that's interesting though because I've driven so many. I've driven JKs and JLs. All of my friends have a Jeep Wrangler. Of course, I own the Defender, and I not too long ago I drove a new Bronco, and I wasn't completely sold on it up until the point when I drove it, and I was like, "Wow, this thing is really good." It just it felt it everyone says it's a good compromise between the Defender and the Wrangler, and it really is.
Yeah.
It's just the main thing with it is the fact that it has an independent front suspension. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I know like the Wrangler has recirculating ball steering, which is like something from 1920s.
Yeah, they don't. They tend to stick with what works for them, which it works for them. So they don't. They keep it very mechanical, which honestly is not a bad thing,
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure the Bronco has normal rack and pinion steering. I believe.
It does.
It
Yeah.
does. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was also another reason it handled a lot better. It didn't handle particularly great, but then again, that's not what it's made for.
Mm-hmm.
It's made to go off road, but it's just a overall much better car than a Wrangler. And whereas the Defender is, I think they still compete somewhat directly, because the Defender has kind of gone off of the deep end of more of a premium upmarket vehicle, but it still has that utilitarian feel.
It does.
And pricing wise, it's most people that are buying Wranglers and Broncos are spending well north of $45,000-$50,000, and that's where most people buying Defenders are spending in the 70s. But like my Defender was in the low 60s, which is where a lot of people's Wranglers and Broncos are. So it's really not much of a price. It's not much of a price hike.
It's not. I think if we didn't order this first edition and we weren't getting it at MSRP, right now they're selling those Broncos for, I think we've seen, and these are private sellers, people are trying to get $100,000 for them because
people are going to pay it.
Yeah, because if people are going to pay it, there's a high demand, and they have, there's not a lot on the road yet.
Yeah.
And so, even if dealers get them on the lot, that markup, they're all kind of right in the same price range.
Yeah, they are.
That's a dealer markup too,
and at the end of the day, it comes down to, well, what car do you want? I mean, the Wrangler is, before Defender, which I don't really know if I can count, going from one generation to the next. The car that improved the most from the previous generation to the next generation was always, in my opinion, from JK Wrangler to JL. Even though it was still the same thing for the most part. In terms of refinement, the JL is so much better than the JK.
It's really,
it has creature comforts. The interior is actually, it's not super nice, but it's nicer than it has to be.
Yeah.
I still think that the Wrangler's interior feels a little bit nicer than the Broncos, but I'd still take the Bronco anyway. But yeah, and then I've driven an old Defender and obviously the new one, and I don't know if I can really
you can't say,
you just can't. We
had talked before we started recording, and the new Defender is the new Defender. It's a new vehicle. It's comfortable. You can travel in it and take it off road. It really does kind of check all the boxes. An old Defender is capable. You're driving a tractor and you're going to go and tear up the terrain and go anywhere you want to go. And you're definitely not buying an old Defender for comfort,
No.
But there's plenty of people that still love them. And I'm definitely one of those. I would love to get a nasty 90. That's on my wish list.
and I agree. I mean, I love the old Defender, and the new one, as great as it is, it's not the same. And I've a lot of people say, oh, that should have been the Disco 5. And I understand where they come from with that, but also as a Disco 5 owner, I don't necessarily agree. I mean, it's still got most of the capability of the Defender, but the Disco 5 is still just a better family vehicle. It's a lot nicer than the Defender. It's interestingly, the ride on the Disco 5 is a lot more sporty. It's really stiff.
I've driven one before, and it does drive a little different than the LR4.
Oh yeah, completely. And of course, obviously, Disco 5 is unibody. LR4 is that integrated body frame that was the mishmash of a unibody and a body on frame, which worked incredibly well, but it ended up weighing so much.
Yeah, it's heavy.
But yeah, the Disco, it's more, I guess, a little bit more car-like to drive, even though it's in my opinion, it feels more SUV than crossover.
Yeah.
But it's just a better family car. You have 7 full-size seats for, we can put adults in the third row.
Yeah,
There's
you can actually
charge ports everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, you can utilize that third row, which makes a big
Okay.
difference because until they release the 130 and the
Mhm.
Defender, there is no reason to get the third row in the new Defender.
100%
I,
agree.
I don't even think my kids would fit back there, you know?
I mean,
I
that
I
this
don't know.
third row seats in that thing is so used. They look to be like the same size as the ones you get in the Disco Sport, which I remember I tried to get in the third row of one of those a few years back. I'm not very tall. I'm 5'9",
Yeah.
and I physically could not. It's just so bad. I got stuck between the back of the second row seat and the side of the car
Oh
because
no.
like you can put a 4-year-old back there, and any bigger than that you can't fit. Um,
Oh
and
my
it
God.
looks, I don't know, I have a feeling that the 130 is going to be the same. It's going to have the same small seats and just a lot more room behind the.
I'm hopeful that they give a few inches of leg room for the third
Mhm.
row to make it useful, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm holding out hope that the 130 is what I've been waiting for. Otherwise, my husband really likes the D90s, so
Mhm.
we might go D90.
Yeah,
But
those are awesome.
yeah,
However, the thing is, I know that they said that because all of this stuff got leaked way before the car was even revealed. There's this like dealer meeting and all this stuff they talked about it. Like 110 was first, 90 was right after that, and then a couple years later, it was supposed to be 2022 when the 130 was going to come out, and
right.
it obviously got delayed. But they said that was going to be an 8-passenger, not 7. So I don't know if I don't think they're going to do the bench seat, because you cannot get a 110 with a bench seat and a third row.
But they're
So
not going wider body, are they?
no, but I remember seeing a spy photo of a 130, and it almost looked like that they had like a third row bench seat with 3 seat. I could see if I can
Interesting.
find that real quick, but
I've never seen that, but
um
that would be interesting. I think that the 130 really, and I think I even looked at specs at one point, or speculated specs for the 130 that
mhm,
it's closer to a classic 110 length than the new 110. Uh,
mhm.
and
Because the
so
new 130 is gonna be huge. It's gonna
it's
be,
it's long.
yeah.
It's long. I can't remember the specs, but I remember
Um,
looking at it.
oh, I have
You
it.
gain 11 inches, almost a foot.
Yeah, it says here. So like this was from the thing that got leaked a couple years back. So Defender 90, which is like their Halo image icon, you get 5 and 6 seats. Their intended customers are young, affluent, fun-seeking individual, whatever that is.
All right.
Defender 110, the definitive Defender. Actually, you know what? Why not? I can show you. You can see this. Um, so I can read. Definitive Defender, 5, 6, and 7 seats, made for couples, self-employed adventurers. Again, whatever that is. The 130, which was 22 model year originally, Premium Explorer, 8 seats, family, active lifestyle, and travel. That sounds a lot like your family to me.
It does.
So
We fit that bill. But that's
that's
interesting because I really thought that they were originally trying to market the 110 as the family weekender, right? Like, hey,
yeah,
this is where families are going to have the 110 and they go on these weekend trips. And so it's interesting. Maybe they got feedback. I mean, I'm excited about the 130. I know a lot of people don't love that overhang because, you're, I mean, your departure angles are going to be much more challenging if you take it
yes,
off road, which is always a factor with a longer vehicle. But um,
it is
when you have 3 kids and I have 100-pound lab, that's kind of why we upgraded to the F-250. Is that
the extra
I will
space.
take the space. It's not for everyone, but I fit that bill for sure.
Yeah, and it's hard to type and do this all at once. But yeah, it's it's interesting because I think the proportions on it are just off. It looks kind of like a school bus based on,
It's got
but
a big rear end.
yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I am not
Baby got back. Sir Mix-a-Lot would probably,
big booty.
yeah. All right, okay. I remember seeing these pictures. Interior of Defender 130 uncovered. Was there a third row? 3 rows of seats.
With 8 seats.
Yeah, that's what.
It's got to be the third row. There's no way they're going to put the jump seat.
I just want to see, where are all these pictures that are.
I know.
This website's horrible. The new continuous 3 comfortable seats and upholstered. Continue.
8 instead of the usual 7.
Yeah, but
that's not clear, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible,
Yeah. 3 you're saying maybe they mean the third row instead of second row, because granted, that does have a bigger headrest in the second row than the 110.
Yeah, that's true. It's the same bench as in the LR4, that 60-40.
Yeah, or 40-20-40.
40-20. You're right.
Which I miss. Disco 5 has a 60-40, but it can, is a unit, it's a 60-40, but you can individually fold the middle seat down.
Oh, so I mean, that's like the LR4. Mine can do that too.
But when you fold them all down, it's a 60-40 split. And the same with the Defender.
Yeah.
So like, if you fold it flat, it's 60-40. If you want to fold the center seat, it's at an angle like this.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
No, they had there was. I'm trying to figure this out, but
I've only ever seen those, like with the big tail end, and
yeah,
it'll be interesting once they take the camo wrap off. Like, will it look bad? I mean, it's big.
Independent sunroof in the third row. That's interesting.
Ooh, that's nice.
That's like the LR4.
Yeah.
That is like hang on.
It is 3 seats.
Yeah, this is a picture. So it is.
No way.
Leg room still looks to be.
It looks
not
tight.
Great.
It looks better than the 110 though. Like, they definitely gave you a few inches, but I don't know if a grown adult could sit back there comfortably.
And it looks like that headrest in the third row, the middle one, is the same as the one that I have in mind. But there's also a speaker up there, so I don't know if they're doing maybe you get a better Meridian sound system, because usually you have an extra speaker. Maybe they just moved it, because usually you're like here. I'm pointing at my screen, but I'll use the cursor. Yep. Here. It's a solid piece of plastic, but it looks like they cut it out for more room.
Yeah, you're right. Usually that is, covers the wheel well, and then in the LR4 at least you have your storage. There's some compartments and stuff, but you're right. There is a cutout there, so that, I mean, I had no idea that was even a consideration with the 3. I just assumed it was going to be 2, but that would be really nice. I mean, there's nothing on the seat there, but there's a headrest. So
yeah, I think that's probably it's a prototype, so that's how they are.
That looks like a 60-40 split in the center row, though.
Yeah, that is the same. And also, like, there's a little button here, right where my cursor is. You can press that button, and it in the center folds by itself. So if you have like skis or something. Yeah. But
I grew up with an Expedition, and we had the captain's chairs.
Oh yeah, which are making a comeback. Captain's chairs making a comeback.
You know what? I was very fortunate that we had a 1990 Chevy van, what van lifers love to have now. I
Yeah.
grew up with that, and it had, the velour interior and the captain's chairs that would turn around. And so we always had the captain's chairs. I kind of wish Land Rover would make that an option.
Well, you can get that if you get a Range Rover. You get
That's true. I did
Yeah.
build my Range Rover. It's tempting because, once you build them out with all the options, the price is not that different.
Yeah, just don't get the V8.
Yeah, if you get the V8.
I know, but no, if you were to buy a Range Rover and if you're gonna keep it, don't get the V8, because that N63 BMW engine, I've always said, is crap. I've said it before. I have another podcast that I recorded like 2 weeks ago, and still not done yet. We're gonna re-record it with Emeka. Do you follow him? Driven Hard Official. He's got a Range Rover Sport. He's from Canada, and he's called Driven Hard for a reason, because he uses his Range Rover Sport. It's a Ferenz red autobiography, vintage tan interior, and he off-roads it he's got 21s on it, and he has no problems with it.
That's amazing.
You
know what? Know where your tires are. And
exactly.
I did that in my LR4 with the 19s until I ran those Pirellis out, literally, I don't know. That was just the practical application. Wait to buy new tires until you tear up the new ones on there.
But yeah, we were talking all about that with him. But I mentioned that, that engine is so bad. I have a neighbor. He leased a BMW 750i, which has that same engine. It was supposed to be a 3-year lease. 2.5 years in, it had like 40,000 miles on it. It needed a new engine.
Oh my God.
Those things
so
are
disappointing. It just,
and that's one car. But those engines are known they leak oil from the valve covers. They have turbo issues. High pressure fuel pump issues is a big problem. They have battery drainage issues. It's just a bad engine.
It's disappointing, Range Rover has had such a bad reputation since the P38 that to be going with that V8 is not going to help if that's what the known issues are,
And one thing that we were discussing is, well, maybe Land Rover did some internal work with it, maybe to, because some people do, like, even though Aston Martin use AMG V8s, they tune it themselves. It's not the exact same engine that's in an E63 or a C63.
Gotcha.
However, I don't believe that, because it has the exact same horsepower and torque figures as every BMW with that engine. So if you look at an M850i, it's the same. It's 523 horsepower and 500 something pound-feet of torque. I don't remember, but it was the same. So yeah, if it was me buying one, I'd get the base with the straight six. I didn't really like that engine in the Defender, but it's a great engine in a Range Rover. It suits that car a lot better than it does the Defender. But who knows? We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I will say I appreciate that they're still doing V8s when so many car companies and even JLR are leaning towards the electronic designation, which is a whole nother conversation. So I do appreciate that that's an option. I wish we could get diesel here. I wish that like Defender, the Range Rover, please JLR, give us the diesel.
Yeah, they have that new Ingenium straight six diesel, which you can get up in the Range Rover up to 350 horsepower. It's pretty good. The Defender, you can get the straight six with 200 horsepower, which it might be a 6-cylinder with 200 horsepower. And that thing's got to be slow.
That goes back to like tractor status.
Yes. But it's a mild hybrid, straight six, direct injected, supercharged and electric supercharged and turbo diesel with 200 horsepower. And then they do a 250 horsepower version, which that should be enough. And then they do in the Defender, the top is 300 horsepower diesel, which that will be more than enough.
The torque in that.
Yeah. And then the same engine you can get in Range Rovers, you can get an extra 50 horsepower. So, but that would be the engine I get if they had that here, but they don't.
But they don't. We
They
never
do
do
have
things.
they do have a plug-in hybrid with the bigger or the higher horsepower straight six gasoline engine. And I think in all it's like 510, 520 horsepower plug-in hybrid, and it has up to 60 miles of electric only range, which is insane.
You know, that's really nice when you're doing city driving,
Oh
and
yeah.
I fully respect that. That's a nice like option to have that hybrid,
Oh
because 60 miles, that's a lot. That's a
yeah.
lot. That's a
Oh
huge.
yeah. I mean, that could get me to work. That's like I could go to work 2.5 days on electric only. But
It's pretty good.
I mean, I have, I want to wrap things up, but real quick, one last thing I'd like to say is that I have a neighbor, a really good friend of ours. They still have an SVR. He ordered a Range Rover Sport SVR. He got it. He didn't really like it as much as he thought because it was a little too sporty, a little too stiff for him.
Yeah.
So he went out and he bought a Wrangler 4xe Rubicon, which I'm like, want something that's less comfortable.
That's that is a really interesting switch.
Yes. He still his wife drives the Range Rover now a lot more. Because she retired. She had a company car. She had a Ford Explorer that she would just drive, and then when she retired, she had to give that back. So he got the 4xe, and she's driving around the SVR, and he loves that 4xe. I mean, he thinks it's the greatest thing, and for him, it makes a lot of sense because he's told me the last time I saw him, which was like 3 weeks ago, he told me he only filled that up once, and he got it in May. He's filled it up with gas one. And granted, his commute to work is like 7 miles. So he just goes to work, plugs in at work, goes home, plugs in at home, and just so he's filled it up once since May.
Wow.
So that's impressive.
It is.
But I wouldn't buy one of those. I mean, I don't need the plug-in. I mean, it's nice. Again, like maybe if I lived in London, if I wanted a Range Rover, then I would basically have to buy that without being taxed a lot and, paying all these charges just to enter into the city. So with that, it makes a lot of sense. But
does I might tread dangerous waters depending on, everyone has different opinions of electric vehicles, but I think that the electric is so nice just for that, right? You're a quick commute, city driving, that urban driving, totally makes sense. I think for the US, at least my experience in California, the infrastructure is going to have a very challenging time supporting electric vehicles.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
I think in some ways, a lot of this is the cart before the horse. And so, having a hybrid for electric or for urban driving is amazing. Now, for your European listeners, they also like going out to the country or any sort of mileage, like we drive halfway across the country at least once a year, if not more. I can't imagine having an electric vehicle to try, then you have to find a charging station or figure out, your mileage, and you may be limited in travel in a day just because of your electric vehicle. So it's really interesting watching this shift of everyone wanting to go full electric, but I think that that's great for urban areas.
It's not realistic.
It's not realistic in a lot of applications. So it'll be really interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, Tesla does have a really good infrastructure set up. It's not perfect yet, but as much as I don't like them, they've really kind of thought it through with charging infrastructure and even their car and their battery technology. I have to admit, as much as I hate their products, their battery technology is better than anyone else in the auto industry. I mean, they're unbeatable in certain aspects.
I agree. They're definitely ahead
but
in the game. I
but
think the
people are
life,
catching up.
yeah,
Um,
it's true. A lot of these makers.
Especially Mercedes, which a couple
Mm.
years ago they were making crap electric cars, but their newest one, the EQS, which just looks like this. It quite literally looks like a computer mouse.
That doesn't
Is
surprise me.
It's so ugly, but it just beat out the Tesla Model S for going longer on a single charge than any other car ever made. It did over 400 miles. They did it in like
Whoa.
California or something. Yeah. But other, electric Ford, it's not a Mustang, but they call it a Mustang Mach-E. I loved that car.
I know you do, which is
That car is everything I don't like in a car, but I loved it. It's a crossover that's electric and it's pretending to be a sports car. But that was a lovely car. Jaguar I-Pace, also a really good product.
Honestly, I actually really like the I-Pace.
Yeah, I think it's a bit. I think it looks really good, but their proportions are just way off. It looks like it's front wheel drive, but it's not. It's strange looking, but
That's
it's
true.
in a good way.
I think if
And
you
they
get
drive well.
yeah, I think if you get the upgraded finishes
Mhm.
and the a good visual pack,
Yeah,
they can look really good. But like any vehicle, it's like if you don't do some of those upgrades, they look just off. I
right.
don't know
Yeah.
how to describe that. That was a terrible description, but I love those, but you really need some of the upgrades in order to get
Even
them
in my opinion,
looking
a little
clean.
bit with the Defender too.
Yeah,
Some
I would
Defenders
agree
just
with
don't
that.
look. I mean, I know a lot of people like a black Defender. You know, get what you want. I think it's the worst color you can get. It just doesn't show off any of the lines of the car. It looks cool. You can pretend to be a James Bond villain, but it's just kind of, and that kind of goes with anything in black from and
Yeah.
white, not as much, but in some cases, white.
I will say all of our vehicles are either black or white or gray and
Yeah.
white or some variation of, and I am so excited to get color back.
In the Bronco,
The Bronco we're
what
doing
color?
we got the red.
Oh, okay.
I'm drawing a blank on.
Is it the
It's not the
metallic
red.
red?
Yeah, it's not
Oh,
the
that's
rapid
lovely.
red. It's
Or
the why am I drawing a blank on it? Whatever the first edition, it's not the race red, it's not the rapid red, it's a little more of the muted metallic red.
yeah, my sister's Escape is called Ruby Red. I don't
Yeah,
know if that's what
I know. Why am I drawing a blank on it? I mean,
Edmunds.com to the rescue.
I know
Or
I've
app.
stared at this thing
Oh,
forever.
so exterior on the 20 years of 21, right?
Oh, it says rapid red.
Yeah, rapid red metallic,
It is
which
rapid
is
red.
a lovely color. That's a really nice color.
I like it. Growing up, we had an Explorer, which was actually a similar color. I can't remember what,
Yeah.
that paint color was called. But again, I definitely lean towards those neutral colors. And then, I'm really looking forward to having color. And like I said, if I can custom order a Land Rover in the future, it's most likely going to be some variation of green. Because
Yes.
I would agree, it can be washed out in white or black. Black is very hard to keep clean.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to see people getting colors again.
But even when it comes to like really dark colors, some cars can be too dark. Like for example, my dad's Audi is blue, but 95% of the time it looks black. It's kind of hard to tell it's blue.
Okay.
Whereas my mom's Disco 5, which obviously, you've seen, it's obviously green, even though it's really dark green.
I like it. That one's so pretty.
That we can't get rid of. My mom she keeps saying, "Oh, I want to get a Porsche Macan. I want to get a Porsche Macan." And I'm like, it's a great car. Keep the Disco because you'll never, ever, ever find another one like it.
Yeah, it's such a classic color combination. I'm surprised, and I don't know if that's just where I am in the country. I rarely see that color combination.
Oh, I hardly see any. I mean, what's even crazier is, I mean, I'm sure I've told you in the past, that was only available on the first model year for the Discovery, and they sold none of them in it. One of my buddies who used to work for JLR, he estimates, I mean, we don't really know for sure, but he estimates there's probably maybe 200 at the very most in the country that are
Wow.
painted that color.
That's surprising and not at the same time. 'Cause
Which when
you
we,
don't see them. You
yeah,
don't see them.
and that one came off a dealer lot. That was not a special order. My mom wanted the special order one, but at the time was after the cutoff and they discontinued the color.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I don't remember the exact number, but there was less than 10 green ones in the country that
Wow.
that was online that we could buy.
Yeah.
My mom also liked a color called Scotia Gray, which they don't do anymore, which was another, like my other favorite color. It was like a gray, silver, green, blue type. It was a very interesting color. There was only one in the country.
I was gonna say, I don't even know if I've seen Gosha Gray. I'm gonna
Yeah.
Google that.
They did that in the LR4 too. It looked really good in the LR4. But yeah, but green is the, I would have loved to, if they did a racing green Defender, I would have gotten that, but I know my mom would not let me.
I considered a wrap. Like I was
Yeah.
like full committed. If I'm getting a Defender, I'm wrapping it.
Yeah.
If I can't get it in the
I mean, I
color.
assume you can get a wrap that's, I'm sure they can make wraps that are identical to a color, right? I mean, you could give them,
Yeah.
you could give them Land Rover's paint code and they can, yeah. It might be hard to do the metallic because
It might. That technology though, I'm really, every time something comes out, I'm really impressed that that's even an option. Just
yeah,
obviously used to be color change and painting your vehicle, and now it's full wrap that if to the untrained eye, no one knows, no
right.
one understands what that is. So it's really interesting.
And
But
it's cheaper,
it is
a
cheaper.
lot cheaper.
Well, and like just resale, like no one
Yeah.
wants a repainted vehicle,
Yeah.
because like then under the hood and in your door jambs, it might be the original color. So,
Right.
to my knowledge, I'm fairly positive they can color match almost any color, uh, unless for some reason it's restricted by the brand,
Yeah.
So,
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I saw not too long ago, my dealer had a Range Rover in the SVO British Racing Green, the one that's the $4,500, $4,600 one. And I was like, how can that thing, how can that be better than Aintree Green? And then like it was dark in the dealer, and then it was cloudy, and then the clouds went away, and the sun just shined inside, and I was like, oh, that's why. I mean, because it was like the metallic in the Aintree Green is insanely good.
Yeah.
That thing is 10 times better, and I'm not exaggerating. It was just like, I mean, now if I got a Range Rover, I'd be like, yeah, I'd get that color. That's what I'd pay that extra money, and then I'd have a clear wrap put on it so it doesn't get damaged.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. So Kristin, why don't you tell everyone where can social media, like Instagram, mainly Instagram, because that's what you're on most.
Yeah,
Right.
I have Facebook, but I'm not on it for much more than the groups. So
Yeah.
I am on at LR45, FIVE. I do my best. They're mostly iPhone pictures of my cars, but we do try to take our kids places and give them some great life experiences and some fun times in our vehicles.
Yeah.
So
That's what I love. You take your kids out to, do things that, not other kids might not do all the time, or, to go experience, get outside and do all that, which I never did.
yeah,
That explains a lot, but that's why I'm not very much of an outdoorsy person, but it's great. And
it's funny though, I grew up in Colorado, but I grew up in the country club, and my dad had really severe allergies. So it was not a childhood of hiking and backcountry and being outdoors, but we did have a 35-acre horse ranch. And because my dad had bad allergies, we didn't live on there. But that's where I learned to drive. That's where, I baled hay for my horses and learned to mend fences. And so I got that experience. But my husband's really the one that introduced me to backcountry, outdoors, hiking, mountain biking, etc. So it's fun to introduce that to our kids because it's an amazing opportunity, so.
Yeah, that's
I'm
interesting.
grateful.
You think of people that come from Colorado, you don't think that's like all they do is go hiking and biking and
Yeah.
camping, and it's just like it makes sense. Of course, your dad had allergies, but
Yeah.
I guess it's his idea of outdoors was going golfing.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%. Which,
yeah,
I mean, I still grew up being outdoors. It was just a different variation.
right, right. And
So,
that's how it was for me. If I was outside, I was I was playing tennis, but I played tennis inside, um, or swimming in the neighborhood or cutting the grass. But
yeah.
yeah, but I mean, you can't. Yeah, it'd be a big ask to get me to go camping, but I know I'll give in at some point.
You know what? It took me a long time, and now I'm the instigator. Like,
Yeah,
poor husband works so hard, and I'm like, okay, where are we going? Like, we got to do something. It sounds crazy, but with 3 kids, life is crazy. But they tend to be more grounded when we are out in open nature, in open space, whatever it is. It's maybe not less chaotic.
mhm,
There's definitely a shift, and they are happy outdoors.
yeah,
And so, like, these walls close in pretty quickly. We have to be outside. I don't care what it is,
yeah.
you know?
Of course, yeah. Yeah, well, like I said, Kristen, thank you so much for coming on. And
Thanks
yeah,
for having me.
everyone, go follow her on Instagram at LR45 and follow along with her adventures. We'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.